You know, as a 20-something-year-old who's been watching Formula 1 since the dawn of time, do you know the one thing that I really hate the most? Lando Norris fans. But do you know what I really hate even more than Lando Norris fans? Bullshit. Lots and lots of bullshit. I know that some people get things wrong every once in a while, but then there are other things which are just flat out bullshit, yet most Formula 1 fans take as gospel. And when I mean bullshit, I don't mean silly conspiracy theories like Aston Martin deliberately having a shit 2025 season just so they can get more wind tunnel time for the 2026 season and beyond, nor does it mean things that other people believe that I don't agree with. Such as, I don't believe Lando Norris is a good Formula 1 world champion. That obviously isn't fact, that's just my opinion. I'm talking about things that other people believe that are just simply not true. And when I mean things that simply aren't true, I'm not talking about blatant stuff like Lewis Hamilton fans crying about everything being racist when things aren't going his way. I'm talking about like-minded Formula 1 fans like you and me, who love this sport and actually just have a few discrepancies in our memories. So without further ado, here are a few Formula 1 myths that for whatever reason just really grind my greasy gears. That sounded wrong. As a motorsport fanatic, I also love MotoGP as much as Formula 1. And who is the messiah of MotoGP? Valentino Rossi. Yes, Valentino Rossi was the king of motorcycle racing, winning 9 world championships, including 7 in the Premier class, and to this day holds the record for most Premier class victories. Although he's going to lose that record very soon. Rossi was such an idol that he ended up getting test outings for Ferrari in the mid-2000s. And to say that people like to hype these tests up would be an understatement. At the beginning of the 2006 season at the Valencia Circuit, not that one, Rossi tested for Ferrari alongside full-time drivers Schumacher and Massa. And Rossi did a spectacular job, with it being a well-known fact that Rossi's best lap time of the test was just half a second off Schumacher's. Surely it would have only been a matter of time before the doctor dropped his 2 wheels for the price of 4. Right?
You're wrong, and you're a grotesquely ugly freak.
Okay, first and foremost, I don't understand where this 5/10 malarkey came from, because it very clearly wasn't 5/10. Rossi's best lap time was a 1 minute 12.362, while Schumacher's best was a 1 minute 11.640, which is 7/10. And last time I checked, 7/10 is not 5/10. But jaded horsepower, I hear you cry. That's still a very impressive result considering the lack of open wheel experience Rossi has, and that Schumacher is the greatest of all time. Well then, let's see what cars they were driving. As motorsport.com likes to imply, it was especially impressive because Rossi was driving an older spec of car and engine. Okay, what car and engine was Rossi driving in? Oh, the F2004, aka arguably the fastest Formula 1 car ever created. Yes, the V10 engine was rev limited, but that doesn't change the fact that it was still a V10 engine. Meanwhile, Schumacher was driving Ferrari's 2006 engine, the F248F1. And let's not fool ourselves, the regulation changes between 2004 and 2006 meant that that car was nowhere near as fast as the F2004. Case in point, Schumacher's fastest Q2 time being 2.3 seconds slower in the 2006 Australian Grand Prix comparing to the 2004 one. But to be honest, Rossi's time from the Valencia test is much easier to compare with Massa's, because he was driving the F2004 as well, only with a V8 engine rather than a limited V10 engine. What was Massa's best lap time from that test? A 1 minute 11.288, over a second faster than Rossi. Now I know it sounds like I'm trying to deride Rossi here, but I'm really not. This was still a good effort considering his lack of open wheel experience comparing to his peers, but I'm in the mindset that the reason why this 5/10 malarkey came up in the first place, as well as the media conveniently not specifying what equipment Rossi was using comparing to Schumacher and Massa, and even when they do state it, they do insist that testing times are difficult to compare, is because Rossi is such an icon of motorsport that any information that might slightly deride the legend that is Valentino Rossi will simply not stand. Case in point, Luca de Montezemolo has at some point claimed that he would have fielded Rossi in a third car had the rules allowed it. Now obviously I can't can't say this would or wouldn't have happened if the rules allowed it, but I'm guessing this was just talk from Montezemolo, just to stroke the fire of the legend that is Valentino Rossi Zigo. Okay, when I mean the Osama bin Russell meme, I don't actually mean where the meme originated from or whatever like that, because I think we can all agree that the meme came from this unfunny dickwad. I'm more talking about the music that is playing over my voice right now. The music that is usually associated with all Osama bin Russell meme videos. It seems that everybody on the Formula Dank subreddit, as well as other YouTubers, seem to think that this music is used because it is a jihadi song, or a nasheed basically calling to kill all infidels, and that it's called El Jihad by El Hazar. Even more, he seems to think so.
The song is a much later installment to Osama bin Russell. It's called El Jihad by El Hazar.
Good God, Maury, didn't you research your stuff before you made this video? So for all you dank memers out there, this song is not about murdering infidels or Christianity or about being a jihad or whatever. It is called Al Kalur Kalur Asarim by Abu Ali, and the lyrics are basically a call against aggressive imperialism, and is not controversial or, in this case, haram in the slightest. As for the El Hazar guy who claims to be the artist behind the song El Jihad, I've got absolutely no idea who he is. There doesn't seem to be much information about him, but he does have a track record of uploading other nasheeds as if he's the artist under different names and contexts. I can only conclude that he's either an Islamophobic white guy who's using these songs to make loads and loads of money, or he's a mentally disturbed Muslim who's using songs from his culture to make loads and loads of money. Either way, El Hazar, whoever you are a bit of a tart. This isn't the bollocks about Timo Glock letting Lewis Hamilton overtake him to beat Felipe Massa, because that quite obviously is a conspiracy theory. Well, of course it's a conspiracy theory now, but back then there were people who genuinely thought this was true. Ignoring the fact that Timo Glock actually gained places as a result of staying out on dry tyres, people still insisted that the reason why he drove so slowly was to let Hamilton win the 2008 championship. It was only after the 9th of November 2017, over 9 years after the event took place, when FOM decided to release Timo Glock's onboard footage of the final lap. It was only then when those people realised what was blatantly obvious. And then people started complaining about FOM. Oh my god, why did we have to wait for 9 years for FOM to release this onboard footage? If only FOM had released this onboard footage earlier, then it would have been obvious to me that Timo Glock was struggling.
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
If you're a true Formula 1 fan like me, you would have the Formula 1 2008 official season review DVD, an accredited FOM product. This DVD was released literally 1 month after the Grand Prix took place. And what's on the DVD, I hear you ask? Oh look, it's Timo Glock's onboard footage of the final lap of the Brazilian Grand Prix.
The rain got heavier and Glock was struggling.
Now granted, it's not the entirety of the last lap, but that's because it was a DVD made for entertainment purposes. Quite literally, because the publishing studio of the DVD was called To Entertain. It's quite obvious looking at all these comments that none of these lunatics are true Formula 1 fans because they didn't pick up the DVD. By the way, I do not recommend watching any of these DVDs now because they're literally just race highlights from David Croft and Martin Brundle. Not too long ago, I mentioned a good motor racing circuit at Valencia. Now it's time to talk about a shit one. Listen, I don't think Herman Tilke is an enemy of Formula 1 per se, because he has made some legit great circuits over the years. But the Circuito Urbano de Valencia has to be the nadir of all of his creations. Of course, I'm not the only one who shares this opinion. In fact, your average Formula 1 fan would agree that this street circuit is quite literally a tip. Well, technically it is now. And when you consider statistics such as this one, there were 0 overtakes after lap 1 of the 2009 Grand Prix, who can blame anyone? Because of course that statistic is absolutely 100% accurate, isn't it?
You're wrong. It's fiction. It's totally made up. It's an urban legend that never happened.
is false. A total fabrication.
Believe it or not, there was actually one legitimate overtake for position that happened on track after lap 1 of the European Grand Prix 2009. The statistic that there were no overtakes actually really pisses me off, because you don't need to do anything fancy to know that it isn't true. You don't need to look at the 2009 DVD to see it. You don't need to find out from an interview from a driver after the race to find out that this overtake happened. It was literally broadcasted for the whole world to see. In fact, it pisses me off so much that I personally went to the Valencia Street Circuit, going to the exact specific spot where the overtake happened, just so I could smack down this false statistic once and for all. Also, I got a bit drunk at a tapas bar before recording this bit, so if I start slurring my words at any point, I can only apologise. Spanish beer is just very heavy in its alcoholic units. Right here. See that? Right there, that's where it happened. Turn 25, the final corner of the now long defunct Valencia Street Circuit. And it was right here where that one overtake did happen during the 2009 European Grand Prix, where Red Bull's Mark Webber overtook the Brawn of Jenson Button for P8 on lap 4 of the race. It was right there. That was where the one overtake did happen. Kinda. Okay, post me will explain how this is a bit of a rough one to explain. On the first lap of the race, Button was battling with Alonso and Webber for position, and in trying to get ahead of Webber, Button had a snap of oversteer going into the turn 4 and 5 chicane and ran wide, overtaking Webber illegally. A few laps later, Webber rightly complained on the radio about how Button overtook him off the circuit and that he should be let back through. The Brawn team got onto the radio to Jenson, telling him to let Webber back through, which Button promptly did on the last corner of lap 4, which Jonathan Lejar completely missed.
At the business end of the grid in the European Grand Prix, round 11 of the Formula One World Championship. Hamilton is leading from Heikki Kovalainen. It's a McLaren 1-2 at the moment. Barrichello is third, Raikkonen fourth, Vettel fifth, Rosberg sixth, Alonso is now seventh. Webber's got through past Jenson Button into 8th place. Now I wonder if we can pick that up somewhere. Oh, there's a problem there!
So on the face of it, you would think that neither of these overtakes count as a genuine overtake, right? Yeah, I agree with you. The move done on the first lap was very clearly an illegal overtake, and the second one was just a case of a driver letting another driver through. However, if we look at the most recent guidelines from the FIA, which defines what is and isn't an overtake, the rules say that an overtake counts when two racers on the same lap traverse a timing loop on a racetrack in a different order than when they passed the previous timing loop. According to the rules, changes for position do not count as overtakes if one or both driver is in the pit lane. If a change in position occurs because a car has retired or has suffered an issue like a mechanical problem or puncture, that does not count as an overtake either. Any position changes that occur behind the safety car or a red flag are also not counted as an overtake. Okay, so far it sounds a bit like common sense, doesn't it? But what's extremely bizarre about this is that a change of position that the stewards deem illegal, such as going off the track and gaining an advantage, apparently still counts as an overtake, even if the driver in question gets a penalty. So even though I completely agree with the sentiment that neither of these changes for position were legitimate overtakes, on lap 4 of the European Grand Prix, there was one change for position which, according to the rulebook Formula One uses to register overtakes, counts as a legitimate overtake, which makes this statistic incorrect. Make it make sense. So overall, did the European Grand Prix of 2009 have one overtake? Well, in a technical sense, yes. In a racing sense, no. Overall though, who gives a fuck?